All right, good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for our annual Women's Symposium. And our topic or theme today is Passion and Power, Women Doing the Work. So we're excited to have two amazing panels discussions. One is going to be about the E-Suite, Women in Leadership, and then the business of entertainment here in DC and across the globe. And we have a very, I think, needed discussion in between those two panels about mental health and how we as women, as Black women, are showing up not just at home, but at work and other spaces. So I'm going to turn it over to our president, Dr. Lamar White, for our welcome.
Oh, good morning, everyone. My name is Lamar White and proudly serve as the president of the DC Black MBA Association. I do want to say the outgoing president and congratulate Ms. Carletta Hurt for being our president-elect, and she will be taking over leadership of this organization, a very powerful woman, from January 1st. So congratulations, Carletta, on your election to this role. The DC Black MBA, we are still dedicated 40 years into it to empowerment of our Black community here in the DMV. And I think this symposium, which I will say is an award-winning symposium because we did get an award for this twice, it really exists to empower our women to continue to be powerful leaders in the DMV and across America, and dare I say, in the world. So thank you so much to the powerful, outstanding, intelligent Black women that are here to speak to us today. And thank you, Carletta, for putting this symposium together and for the leadership that you will take on in January. Welcome, everyone.
Thank you, Lamar. Lamar's a little too happy about me taking over. But I'm excited to follow his leadership and have been just really blessed to have him and all his support. So our opening remarks were addressed is from one of our long-term sponsors and supporters, Muriel Perkins Chavis of Marriott. She's currently the Vice President of Global Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion for Marriott International. She is responsible for establishing the strategic direction, development, implementation, and management of global diversity, equity, and inclusion, work-life initiatives, engagement, and workplace programs. She utilizes her expertise to create a diverse and inclusive environment, broaden perspectives and thoughts, provide programs and solutions that maximize cultural integration, belonging, and drives associate engagement and supporting of the company's business strategy. Muriel has over 25 years experience in human resources with expertise in talent acquisition, leadership development, global diversity, equity inclusion, and EOAA. She holds a bachelor's degree in business administration from Towson University and a master's degree in personnel management from American University. And I would like to just say that we're just so excited to have her here. You know, she's quite busy. And if you live in the DMV area, make sure you check out their new offices that opened up about 2 months ago. That looks absolutely amazing. And we're excited to have her on board. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Carletta, and good morning to everyone. It is such a delight to be here. And I would like to welcome you to today's Women's Symposium on behalf of Marriott International. At Marriott, we are profoundly grateful for the DC chapter of the National Black MBA Association, and more importantly, our longstanding partnership with the national office as well as with the DC chapter. It is a pleasure to be here, and I have to tell you, I just love the theme, passion and power, women doing the work. The theme is very relevant to me for many reasons. At Marriott, women's leadership is a business imperative that we feel is very vital to our success. And nearly 25 years ago, we established the first industry women's leadership development initiative designed to develop a strong pipeline of women leaders, increase the presence of women in leadership roles, and provide opportunities as well as forums for women to network, build mentoring relationships, and promote work-life integration. I have to say that connecting with today's success-focused women leaders is the heart of our strategy and very paramount to our growth. One of the things that we recognize is that understanding women as employees, consumers, and business partners, and acting to explore avenues to create mutually beneficial relationships is essential to our future success. The other thing I would acknowledge is that today's theme aligns with 3 words that have guided me professionally and personally in my pursuit for excellence. And those 3 words are people, passion, and purpose. It is my passion to help, invest, and make a difference in the lives of others. And I know that each of you strive for excellence, which may mean something different to each one of us. But nevertheless, it's important to acknowledge that you have the power to achieve success and to make a difference. And I encourage you to be a change agent in your path to excellence. And in doing so, I'd like to suggest 3 leadership guiding principles that you should keep in mind. 1 is around being a future maker. This is about looking around the corner to discover future opportunities and risk in relationship to existing business models. And if you think about it, given how fast industry dynamics are changing today, this is extremely important. And each of us needs to be forward and progressive thinkers who are dedicated to ongoing learning, innovation, and leading with a global mindset. The next I would refer to as being a talent architect. This is about surrounding yourself with people that are as smart, and I would even say smarter than you. In other words, being a savvy talent architect is essential to sustaining high performance. You should identify top players and be willing to invest in their development while also gaining their confidence and the trust of others so that you can engage and find out more in terms of their different perspectives. And the third is be a team builder. This is about creating what I call the sense of community and a culture of high performance focused on trust as well as teamwork. One of the things I always say is no one can do it alone. Build a strategic network with individuals from different backgrounds and organizational levels. And the reason why this is important is that the ability to build and foster relationships is critical to professional success. Engaging with others is how we get things done, share our own personal brand, and continue learning. These leadership attributes are essential to defining the power of you. And as I close, I think it's appropriate to stress the importance of not only believing in your own power as women leaders, but leveraging that power as you grow in your career and in business. We can all take control of our career progression and leverage our leaders in this process as well. Our development is a journey, and true partnership between ourselves, our leaders, and our company is paramount. Don't be afraid to use your voice and ask for opportunities. The opportunities that stretch you beyond what you think is possible, the opportunities that take you outside of your comfort zone, and opportunities that can catapult you to the next level. With this in mind, I'll end with a quote from a book entitled Brag Better, Master the Art of Fearless Self-Promotion. And that quote is, there are 3 pillars of bragging better, and they are be proud, loud, and strategic. Be proud about your accomplishments, big or small. Be loud and sharing them with others, including your friends, family, colleagues, and leaders. But most importantly, be strategic. Know that sharing these accomplishments is the ultimate form of self-promotion and can open doors, endless doors of opportunity. As women, we have the ability to make a difference. That is my purpose. So I empower you all to use those as your guiding light as you navigate your career and embark on your journey. Thank you and enjoy the symposium today.
Thank you so much. Oh, I love that last one. How to use that: proud, loud, and strategic.
Yes.
But first of all, thank you for being here. I loved your 3, the maker, the architect, and what was the third one?
And the third one was around team builder.
Team building, right? You can't do it alone. You can't do it alone.
Can't do it alone. Yes.
And I think as Black women, we think that a lot of the times, I'm just gonna carry this weight, and sometimes suffer in silence. So I appreciate you for highlighting those 3 things and making sure. And then the last thing you said about just even bragging, we don't always want to share what we're doing.
That's right.
It's really important that we do that because other people do it all the time. And I love how you said also, no matter how big it is, even the small wins is still a win. That's
right. And I have to say, culturally, we have all been taught by our parents, family, friends to work hard. But you don't really talk about what you have actually accomplished. You should do it more. Because there's a tendency when you were growing up, your parents said that was bragging. And you didn't do that, so I'm telling you to change your mindset.
That was a bad word. Why are you bragging? And
Right.
it was so you just kind of this, and not make yourself smaller, but you took your celebrations in private versus making them out in the open. So thank you so much. We really appreciate that.
Sure.
And it's a great segue to our next panel, Women in Leadership. And we're going to be talking to 2 individuals who are currently in leadership positions and what they're doing for their companies. So I'm bringing up Lanta Evans Mott. Is it Mott? M-O-T-T? Mott?
Yes, ma'am.
Awesome. So just first of all, let me just say that Mrs. Evans Mott is a former president of the DC chapter of the Black MBAs. So we are so happy to have her here for our legacy building purposes. And also she founded our Leaders of Tomorrow's program. And if you are not familiar with LOT, as we call it, LOT is our youth development component, and it's really focused on building up future MBAs, but also the future leaders, giving them public speaking skills, financial literacy, and really pouring into them in ways that will help them be better people, as well as business individuals if they choose to. So wanted to make sure I acknowledge her presence for that, because we are definitely grateful for her making that investment back in 1994. Was it 94?
Yeah.
Which is a long time ago. So we've been doing work with young people for a long time. And I can say that we've had them also come back and give back to the organization. So that also tells you how much that program, and Muriel, our last speaker, her son went through LOT. So LOT is a powerful program that we're so happy and proud that she saw fit when she was the leader to bring it into the organization. Because every chapter does not have to have an LOT chapter, just in case those in the audience were wondering. But to her introduction, I'm gonna give you a brief bio. Ms. Evans Mott currently serves as the appointed member of the Prince George's County Commission for Women and on the advisory board for the Greater Washington Community Foundation of Prince George's County. She has served on the Black Financial Advisors Network Advisory Council at Raymond James since 2017, receiving its Impact Award in 2020, and received Raymond James Woman of Distinction honors in 2021. Well, congratulations, Ms. Woman of Distinction. She has a BS in accounting and an MBA in financial information systems from the University of Maryland. She's a registered financial consultant, retirement income certified professional, and earned a certificate in personal financial planning. Mrs. Evans-Mott served as the DC chapter president, as I mentioned before, and started our LOT chapter. Thank you for being here. We also have, she's not here yet, but we're gonna get started. Christine Shikard is she's at Chase Morgan. If you have our program book, her bio is listed there. I'll give you briefly her background. She's the Action VP of Business Banking Consultant for Chase in Washington, DC. She has over 10 years experience at Chase and 10 years in financial services. And they have an amazing entrepreneurship program. And hopefully if she's able to join us, she can share about that. But I want to just dive in because we are here and it's a Saturday and I want to respect people's time. And we have Ms. Lanta, so I'm happy to have you. So first, thank you for being here. And if you could give us a little rundown, your hometown, education, years in your position, what's on your bucket list of places to go, and who do you admire professionally or personally?
Well, first, thank you so much, Carletta, for the invitation. I really appreciate it. And it is always good to come back home. I really do consider the National Black MBA Association my home. I feel like I've grown up professionally with the Black MBA. I met my husband at a national conference and I met my best friend at a DC chapter meeting. So Black MBA has been a integral part of my adult life.
Nice.
For the last 30 something years.
We got you married and with a friend. See,
that's right. That's right. Some of the most important people in my life.
Yes.
I met Black MBA. So yes, I will always be grateful. I appreciate the opportunity and I want to take this opportunity to thank both Dr. Lamar White for his incredible leadership over the last couple of years and continuing this strong legacy that the Washington, DC chapter has. And also Ms. Perkins Chavis from Marriott, since way back when I was very involved in the leadership role at the chapter. Marriott has been one of the most consistent and strongest supporters of the chapters for decades. So just want to acknowledge her and her personal efforts and the company as well. So a little bit about me. I grew up in a small town in northern Florida, Greenville, part of Madison County. It is still small, very rural, still very poor. I was fortunate enough to receive an academic scholarship to the University of Maryland, College Park, where I did my undergrad in accounting and MBA in finance. So I'm still close located, so I'm still very active as an alumni there. I've been full-time in the industry, financial services industry, for the last 2 decades. I was doing seminars for 10 years before then, and realized while I was doing those seminars for free all over the country for adults and youth, that this is part of my, not just an interest or passion, but as part of my calling, part of what I was put on the planet to do. So I feel very honored to be able to work in that space that is part of my calling every day, working with people to help increase their financial stewardship, because it is a stewardship issue for me. My bucket list includes Johannesburg, South Africa.
Nice.
And in terms of people I admire, Ursula Burns comes to mind because she is a Black woman who started in a financial career. And there aren't, back when I started in finance in corporate America, not only were there not a lot of women, but there were even fewer Blacks and just a handful of Black women. And to see her rise to become the first Black female CEO of a Fortune 500 company, was really impactful for me in terms of seeing someone who looked like me in that type of role.
Awesome. Yes. And I guess let's just stay in that space, right? Seeing someone who looks like you in that role. How did you find your way to finance? Because I'm assuming there are not a lot of people in, like, when you're traveling across the country. Was this independently? Like, how did you get into this space as a Black woman?
So it helped to have the accounting degree and MBA in finance. Fortunately, Hewlett Packard was a big recruiter at the University of Maryland at the time. So when I was able to start with them in corporate America, it was in a financial role. And I was able to kind of stay in that space within financial roles. But, it's been far and few between that I've, over these last couple of decades, that I've seen a lot of women rise through the ranks in financial roles within corporate America. The financial services industry is a little bit different, but we're still in the not infancy stage, but the percentage of women in the financial services industry, particularly in the Series 7, the non-insurance space, is still less than 15% overall as an industry. So women still have a long way to go. Blacks are still less than 5%. So we still have a lot of space to make up in terms of Black females and their ability to even get invited to be a part of this industry.
Right. You mentioned Series 7. What is a Series 7? What is that?
So the Series 7 allows you to implement the full suite of financial services products. Other licenses may allow you to do mutual funds, but with the Series 7, you can do individual stocks, individual bonds, some of the more sophisticated financial investment products that might be a good fit for your clients.
Okay. Okay. So in this space, and I've seen a lot of Black women. When did you, what was your best advice career-wise when you were like, okay, I like this space. I'm feeling like this is where I want to be. What was the best advice you got in order to stay in this space and really progress the way you have?
That's a tough one in terms of staying in the space. I remember having to make some difficult choices, right? With I'll share a conversation. I remember going through a development plan with my manager about my next career move. This was when I was with Hewlett Packard. And it turns out that most of those career moves that we talked about were in Oregon or Boise, Idaho, where Hewlett Packard had major warehouses and distribution facilities. So plenty of opportunities there. But, I said, I'm a Black woman. I'm trying to get married one day and have kids. So that's not going to work for me. Right. So I consciously made a decision that, there are some places that are on my, non-negotiable list that I'm just absolutely not going to consider. And I think that is one of the things that, if you look at the data, it is one of the things that we don't talk about as much in terms of some of the things that might have held us back career-wise, because we tend to be more family-centric.
Yep.
So, like going and living on the West Coast was not as desirable for me because most of my family is in Florida. We're on the East Coast. So being that far away, would have been a challenge for me as well. So having those geographical limitations, definitely was potentially career limiting for me. But I was conscious and conscientious about those and was very deliberate about what was and was not within, things I would consider.
And doing that, which is, and you were young at this point, right? Because you weren't married. So yeah. you knew very young that, okay, Idaho was not it. So it wasn't even worth, because I know some of us make the say, okay, I'll just live here for 3 years, because it'll help my career, or I'll just move temporarily knowing that I'll be back. And sometimes it doesn't happen, right? Some other things happen. So what made you have that kind of chutzpah, moxie at such a young age to say, that my career isn't worth that direction. I'm going to do this direction.
So a couple things I would say. I've been fortunate enough to be raised by people who had a good sense of integrity and centering around things other than money. So I have never been primarily driven by money. I help people manage their money for a living, right? That's what I do. So money certainly has its appropriate place, but it's not the end all be all for me, never has been. And that's not the way, you know, my clients and I manage, you know, for most of them is not either, right? So in terms of those type of considerations, yes, money is an issue, but it's not the first thing that I'm driving towards. The thing I would say with that though is I was with a firm, you know, Hewlett Packard was one of those early companies for decades. Things may be different now, but at that time, really focused on personal and professional development for their employees. And one of the things I would say that companies can do to do a better job of that is thinking about those kinds of things for people like me. So what they eventually migrated to was, okay, if Boise and Corvallis, Oregon are the places where a lot of jobs are, perhaps when we go recruit Black students from HBCUs across the country, maybe we recruit 3 or 4 from the same school. So at least they have a community of people once they get there into these isolated environments. So there's a sense of community that they're bringing with them, and it makes it easier for them to find the success that they're looking for. And those type of strategies, I think corporate America probably can do a much better job of thinking about not just the job itself, but, you know, when you talk about inclusion, people need to feel part of a community. And if it's not something that's going to occur naturally and organic, sometimes you have to create it or help them create it.
Oh, that was a great segue for our next question. But really quickly, I see that Ms. Perkins Chavis is still with us. Do you want to join this conversation, Ms. Perkins Chavis? Or okay. I see she came off mute. I know she was on a tight schedule, so I was, but she's also in this space of like corporate America, and talent acquisition is something that she specializes in. So I wanted to give her a chance to chime in. I see you off. There you go.
Oh, here I am. Okay, sorry. I
So
was multitasking.
No. So what are your thoughts around this conversation of, you know, having, when you're younger, having this groundedness of knowing like it's not about money, it's about presence and placement. And then also, Lanta mentioned that corporations recruiting in clusters, so that if you're going to be in this kind of like remote town in Idaho, you have a group of young people going together so they don't feel as isolated as they start their career and looking for ways to go in the direction of being in the E-suite at some point, that trajectory.
Yeah, no. I mean, I think it's important to definitely build this sense of connection. You know, one of the things I've learned is that people are more engaged and have a greater sense of belonging with organizations when they feel as though they have a friend at work. And so that becomes very critical in terms of people feeling as though I matter. You know, I have this sense of belonging because they are a part of a team. And so providing, you know, an environment where people can foster and grow and engage with others, I definitely think, you know, truly makes a difference.
All right. Oh, thank you. Now, so since you mentioned this in your end of your opening about bragging, what are you two most proud of professionally? What is something that you would brag about yourself that you've done, whether it's at where your current place of employment or just professionally in helping others and doing the work you're doing?
I would say that what I am most proud of is my children. I was raised, by 2, wonderful parents, and they always told me that you can do and be whatever you want to be. And my mother was one of those overly energetic people that people naturally gravitated to her. So I always wanted to be, like her. So I am very proud, of my, family, connections, and my children, who I know this is odd to say, but I think they do see me as their role model. They see both my husband and I, as their role models, for them. And I think because of that, they have been very committed to truly, make a difference in the lives of others. I think the other thing I would probably say is my willingness to just mentor others. When we have new people coming into the company, I'm always raising my hand to say, let's talk a little bit about, how do you drive success, in our organization? And I talk a lot about the fact that relationships are so important and we are a strong relationship organization, but I also talk about, it's about generating results and don't overcommit yourself, so there's some of those things. So I think I'm proud, of that. And then on a personal note, I'm proud that I've had the ability to just travel, different places and experience, different things. I always say that one of these days when I eventually retire, I'm going to be a beach bum and just, be on the beach and relax and, and just take it easy. So.
Awesome. What about you, Lana?
What I would say is that it's interesting to me when I hear a lot of women of our generation speak. A lot of the sentiments are the same. The importance of knowing where you came from and that family connection. No matter what else is going on, have been instrumental. And also for me, faith. That's been a big part of the journey. And I appreciate that I was raised by people, surrounded by family and friends who understand that success, one of my favorite quotes from decades ago has been, success is not a destination, it's a journey, right? So recognizing that there will probably be milestones along the way. And, I can probably point to a couple of different milestones, certainly coming from a very poor rural area, being valedictorian, really set the tone for some of those other opportunities that came afterwards. More recently, I would say I received an industry recognition. Investment News selected me as one of their diversity and inclusion, be it, see it role models for 2021. And that was significant for me because it recognized not only my own personal success within the industry, but my role in helping to create opportunities for other women and other minorities to increase the number within the industry. Some of my roles with some creating actually and starting the Association of African American Financial Advisors to help increase the number of advisors, while I am also trying to build my practice within the industry. And for us, it's a different type of burden, and I will call it a burden, where we can't wait till we get to the top to reach back and help someone. We have to help other people along the way. I call it the black tax, right? And not that we aren't happy to do it, but if right now, if any of you ask, can I talk to a Black female, in your company who is a financial advisor? If you go to 10 or 15 of these different firms, there's a very limited number of women who could even be on that list, right? So if people want to talk to a Black female who is a financial advisor at your firm, there's not that many options for them. So you get asked a lot to do the mentorship and the sponsorship, and they're only 24 hours in a day, right? So and it's not just, the firm asks you, but every professional association that you're part of asks you, Black MBA, Delta, the church, your clients, there's all these people who legitimately know you and want to, appreciate your insights, right? And want the people that they know to have benefited that, but it's only 24 hours in a day. So that is something that has been frustrating for me because I've been actively trying to increase the number for 20 years. Like since I started, literally the month I started, I also was helping with this organization, so to see that we haven't made a lot of progress really has kind of been frustrating. but I am committed to continue to work and support other organizations that are trying to really be about increasing the number of Blacks and females in this industry, because I believe that financial literacy is a life skill that every student going through junior high and high school should be better versed on financial principles and concepts so that they really can be better managers of their resources throughout their lives.
Definitely, thank you. I think and now I can chime in as a high school counselor, that we definitely have started doing more work in that area. Right around when COVID 2021, we started a advanced algebra financial literacy class. So instead of taking just like a 4th year math, now you can take advanced algebra and financial literacy, talk about checking, credit, all those elements, because I work at my school is an alternative school and our students are adults, so they're usually over 18. And so we're really focused on giving them some skills for life. So when they graduate, because some of them aren't going to college, some of them have already started working, they have families, and we want to make sure they are doing something different so their life trajectory can be different than what they actually experience themselves. So, and I definitely appreciate this idea of, when I was at conference, the Black Women Conference, our leadership summit, he said, do less better. When you said 24 hours in a day, and making some really intentional decisions on who you want to support. And I think that's also for both of you. You're not just professionals, you're parents, you're wives, you have families, and you both spoke about the deepness of your family, like your parents and your siblings and your relatives, and that takes time too. They want their time. So I think that balance is also really important. So do less better is like my theme for now, like do less better. So I'm working on like, how can we be more intentional, and even taking over as president. So, but going into that same vein, right, and thinking about, you mentioned the Black tax and how we help along the way. Don't wait till you become like CEO, but along the way, find ways to support other individuals of color. What have you seen? Why is it important to support Black women in their journey to get to the E-suite? Why is that work important? From what you've seen and getting to where you are.
Mario, you want to go first?
Well, yeah, no, I can add to that. I mean, it's almost back to what I said. You can't do this alone, so it is very important, to support, others, along the way. And, I support, other, Black women because I want them to succeed. And I know that the way I was able to succeed is because I had a mentor, I had a sponsor. I talk a lot about building your own board of directors. Mm-hmm. And, it's important to have different people that you can work with at different levels. I mean, I know that I engage, with the millennials because I need them. They're important. They bring great insights. And when you have different perspectives, you tend to get a more well thought out, result solution. Millennials are important. All generations, are definitely important. But even in my board of directors that I have people internal within the company that I know that I can go to, and consult with to get advisement. I also have them outside, of the organization as well. One of the things that, I've kind of learned along the way, and I've referred to it a lot, is this whole piece around PI. It's performance, image, and exposure. And a lot of us perform well, and that is great. But it's also the image that you project and being in a position to get exposure that really does make a difference. And so, supporting, other women or other women supported me is how I learned, about this, because we all work hard, but working hard, honestly, does not always get you there. There are other things that you have to do along the way. So it becomes very important.
I'd like to piggyback off the last piece that you said, really, with the exposure piece, because the research has shown that women overall will typically look at a job opportunity, and if they don't meet 90% of what's on the job description, they're not going to apply. Men will look at it, and if they meet 40%, then
Or
they'll
20.
right. You know, which means for a lot of things that women are well qualified for, they have to be asked, right? So, you know, it is important for us to be in these roles and to get the exposure from some of our previous successes so that we get asked to actually apply for some of these jobs and roles and opportunities, or to be on some team that gives you further exposure, right? So that people know who you are, what you can do, you know, the success that you've had, so that they actually invite you to be a part of their team to help catapult your success even further. It starts to feed off of itself. But if you don't have the opportunity for the exposure, then, you know, a lot of those opportunities will just never come your way, and you'll be performing, making other people look good, you know, and even run the risk of other people taking credit for your work, which is, you know, an issue we have to manage as well.
No, that's awesome. I love that pie concept though. Like that, I really do like that. And exposure can be a variety of things. You know, it's not just, it is about go back to bragging, you know, that whole thing about letting people know, like, this is what I'm doing. Oh, I know you did that, or who knew you had this going on. And so one thing I think is really important that to tell everybody listening is that to be okay speaking about yourself in a way that is not about, it's about informing, it's information, because people, like, closed mouths don't get fed, as Lil Wayne would say. You know, it's important that we speak these things in a way that people can hear and listen, but also that we expose ourselves to other opportunities that might not be available if nobody is aware. So
one nuance on that I wanted to share. I participated in a women's MBA conference a few years ago, and my business school, the Smith School from Maryland, was one of the host organizations. And the speaker talked about the difference in promoting yourself as a woman and asking for what you want and desire. And it was interesting and kind of disheartening that the research showed that interviewers often expect men to ask for the promotion and the raise, but they're offended when women do. Which means as a woman, you have to not just ask for it, but you got to be careful about what you say and how you say it as you are advocating for yourself, not just for what you deserve, but for what you aspire to as well, right? So some of these nuances that we have to be particular about, you know, as women, on top of all the rest of the things, you know, can make all of the difference with what we're trying to achieve.
Great point. Great point. I guess in that space, just I guess asking this question, when have you experienced that? When you were in a space where you realized that you did everything you're supposed to do, but just your appearance was a barrier for progress, and how did you overcome that, or how did you handle it?
Let me share. This was early on in my career, and I think it's still relevant to some extent. You know, we have the Crown Act now, which is, you know, kind of helping with our hair, because that hair is a real big deal for Black women, has always been, shall evermore be, right? I remember when I was finishing my MBA program, Dr. Bill Bradford was one of my professors. And I remember having a conversation with him about whether I should put a lot of my Black activities on my resume. You know, it helps restart the NAACP chapter at University of Maryland. You know, I was in gospel choir, you know, I pledged, you know, a sorority. Should I put those things to make it clear that I'm African-American on my resume, or, you know, leave them off so that people don't exclude me because now they know I'm Black? And what he said to me, you know, felt profound at the time. He said, if they're gonna not interview you because you're Black, that's probably not a place where you want to work anyway.
Mhm.
Yeah. And I would add to that, yeah, it's about being your authentic self. I want to be a part of whether it's an organization, a business, where I know I can truly be me and bring, my insights and my perspectives. So I think that is extremely, important, and we shouldn't sell ourselves short, because we happen to be a woman, or we happen to be, a person of color. So I think that's a very valid point.
Okay. But the experiences, because you're from Florida, right, Lanta? And where are you from?
Actually, I'm a native Washingtonian.
Oh, nice, nice.
So I grew up in the DC area, but also migrated, to Southern Maryland, at an early age. It's interesting because someone said to me, you didn't realize it, but earlier on in life, you were a little bit more of a decision maker than what you thought. And just to quickly tell you the story. So I went to elementary school in DC up into the 6th grade. But then after the 6th grade, my mother's side of the family is in Southern Maryland. And it was very rural at that time. And we were basically there all the time, on the weekends, we'd leave the city and go there. And so I asked the question of my parents, can I go live with my relatives with my aunt in Southern Maryland and go to school? And they said yes. And so someone said to me one time when I was telling that story, they were like, you were making decisions, powerful decisions early on in life, because not many, kids would actually, want to do that. I mean, I saw my parents, regularly because they were down there every weekend and so forth. But I say all that to say, I ended up going to school, in, Southern Maryland. Yeah. So even though born and raised in DC.
So what made a 6th grader who's like, what, 10, I guess, or 11? And you're like, I think I want to do something different. Like, what?
Well, I think it was because the close-knitness of family. It was myself and my brother. My brother decided to stay, in DC and go to school. But I really, enjoyed being with, my cousins all the time. And, it was only 2 of us, and it was just a bunch of other cousins. So it was that collectiveness to want to be around, them. And, I made the decision and was a very well-behaved child. And I did well in school. So I wasn't a problem child. I did my chores, but it was all, it goes back to, it takes a village to raise people. And that's how we grew up. In which, we had many people that were influencing. I mean, the other piece too is many of the individuals did go to college in my family, but many went into a field of teaching. I went into a totally different field altogether, so I majored in human resources and marketing and business, which was just totally different altogether. So I guess I just like doing things differently.
But it fits into, so what I'm hearing is that relationships are important to you. Like, you wanted to be around your family, and now you work in personnel, and that's also about relationships. So it looks like even, at 10, you like, I really like this space about, our people,
Yeah.
So just to ask Lanta the same question, when did you realize, like, were you younger thinking about money and finance? Like, I know you were rural and I'm assuming probably poor. How did that impact you now that you work in an industry where money is like, you have to have it in order, you need money to play the game?
So I didn't realize it, but apparently I had some insight into money even as a young child. I didn't realize it until a few years ago. I was talking to my older sisters. I lost my mom at 12 and my dad at 23. So, some of the stories I think I had forgotten about, but I remember when I was younger having a couple of conversations about money, but one of my sisters shared with me that when my parents ended up having to sell part of the family land in order to pay off the note, which was very high interest rates. But apparently I ended up saying to my father, who had decided the older children who had graduated, this notion of family and being a unit, they had graduated college and business school, but they were helping with the bills for the farm, right? So they had been doing that for a few years so that we could keep the family farm. And when the land was sold, my father decided, well, we're going to give them some of this money as well, because they helped us so that we actually still had it, because we would have lost it otherwise. And apparently at 10 or 11 years old, I said to my parents, the oldest kids have jobs. Why do they need part of this money we have when they are already working? So I wasn't a selfish child, right? But apparently I was tuned into the difficulties that the family had been having paying the bills in the household. And, that mmany years ago, you weren't talking about money that way,
Right.
like we have financial literacy. So, it became clear to me, I was, 50 at the time when they shared the information, but that even from a small child, this notion of finance really is part of my purpose. Part of why I was put here on the planet, because even as a 10 or 11-year-old, I was very tuned into some of those money issues and problems and problem solving. And that knack actually was helpful when my mom passed a few years after that. I was helping my father keep track of the bills and payments and that type of stuff. So that background really was part of who I am.
Awesome. So you both, when you were younger, the seeds were planted, right? And just nourished. And now the fruits of that labor is here today. So that's really exciting. So Merle, I know you joined a little late in the conversation, but just two quick questions, if you could answer those, is what's on your bucket list, or places to go or things to do? And who do you admire professionally or personally or professionally?
On my bucket list, I've done some of the things that were on there. One was to go up in a hot air balloon. And I did that, with my kids and my husband several, years ago. And I have to tell you, it was a very interesting experience. And even, my children, they were like, this is just, phenomenal. So I did that. I think the next thing on my bucket list is I do want to go to Dubai. I think it is not only it's a beautiful place, but I'm just very intrigued by the country itself. So that's definitely on my bucket list. And I'm trying to think what's the other things that I have that are there, because a lot of them I feel like I've done, which is kind of cool to be able to, cool. To be able, to do that. And then what was the other question?
Who do you admire, personally or professionally?
Oh, actually, the person that I admire personally and professionally is Deborah Lee, who is the former CEO of BET. I think she's just an icon, and she is just a phenomenal woman, just in terms of the things that she has done. Now, of course, I might be biased because she's on our board. But I just admire her in terms of the evolution of her career and being a strong, leader and business leader in terms of getting things done and an individual who has strongly showcased the ability to, excel in all levels. And she's committed to giving back, to the community. And I really do admire that. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Oh, thank you. And Christina is here. Yay. Hi, Christina. Thank you for joining.
Good morning. Good morning. So sorry, I had technical difficulties and all kinds of things.
You know what? Technology is not always our friend. It can be really difficult. But I'll give you a second. I gave a brief intro of who you were earlier, but if you want to just answer those 4 or 5 questions in the beginning and just give a little overview of who you are, what you do at Chase, that'll be awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess I will start out, Christina Sicard, Senior Business Consultant here at JP Morgan Chase. I do one-on-one coaching and mentorship for minority entrepreneurs to help them grow and scale their business. It's a brand new division that we started. Our services are complementary, and I love the work that I do because I get to help business owners, specifically in the Black and Hispanic communities that look like me, achieve their goals and scale and really build relationships that we haven't had historically with banks. So that's a little bit about what I do. And just pulling up the questions.
It was your hometown, education, user position, your bucket list, and who do you admire? That helps.
Got it. So hometown, Queens, New York, if you can't hear it in my voice. Very proud New Yorker, born and raised there. I am first generation American though. My dad is from Haiti and my mother's from Panama. So I always, I claim that as well. Education, went to North Carolina Central in Durham. So I'm an Eagle Pride. And I've been with the firm for 13 years in March. So been with them for quite a while. I told you a little bit about what I do. On my bucket list, in terms of places that I want to go and visit, I haven't been to Africa yet, so I'm dying to, get to multiple places there. I want to go to Ghana. I'd love to go to South Africa and just, a lot of different areas there just to kind of experience it and get a feel. I've done a lot in the Caribbean, but not much there. And who do I admire personally? I would say I admire my aunt personally because she was able to learn how to build wealth early on, and she retired at the age of 50. She had a heavy real estate portfolio, and coming from the poorest country in the hemisphere, Haiti, and being able to come to the States, and she babysitted for a wealthy couple in Westchester. And I think she learned a lot of her principles because no one else in my family does things the way she does it. And so she learned a lot from them and was able to do things. And I hate that you guys are gonna laugh, but for like my kind of like star power person that I admire is I love Jay-Z because he's also from New York, and I just love how he continues to like push the envelope. Like a lot of people achieve success and they become kind of stagnant in it. And he's consistently pushing forward every next step, breaking barriers and doing big things. And I really admire that because I think it's pretty difficult once you get to a certain level of success to maintain and to keep going and breaking barriers and pushing envelopes. So he's someone that I kind of admire.
Nice. No, I think it's diversity in who we look at is really important, and so it can't always be the same, right? So thank you for sharing. We were already in this kind of conversation around careers and leadership, and would love just for you to share a little bit about your best at career advice and get into this financial industry in general. What was some good career advice you got as you're moving, up the ladder?
I think the best career advice that I have is you want to always seek out other people and other areas where you want to go early on in your career and take chances to have a cup of coffee, break out of your comfort zone and really challenge yourself to look at the positions where you want to go and find people in those positions, and then, ask them to, to have a chat. Look for mentors and sponsors and people that can actually help you grow your career. And while you're doing that, you always, the best advice I got is to do well in your current position, right? So sometimes we get in these positions and we're kind of over it, or we're not loving what we're currently doing and we want to move on to the next thing. But I think it's really important to do what you're doing really well while you have your eyes sights on the next step and taking steps towards that, whether it be having coffee, reaching out to people, having a sit down, learning about what they do, what's expected, and how can you network further, asking if they could be your mentor, and developing these relationships, and hopefully finding people that want to sponsor you and speak about you in rooms that you're not in, so that those are the people that actually help your career along, because while you're not in the room, they're speaking highly of you, saying you're the person for that job or the next role. And so I think that's been really important in my career.
Awesome. And I'm so glad you talk about that. So I've heard I've heard the word sponsor, mentor, and Lanta's also mentioned it. Lanta's also mentioned that in her conversation. So what does that mean? What does it mean to be somebody sponsors you versus a mentor? And which do you think is most valuable at what stage in your career?
So I think the difference between a mentor and a sponsor is the mentor is the person that's kind of guiding you in terms of giving you the blueprint, the plan of action, helping you with your peaks and your valleys, right? And kind of, really, giving you the hands-on approach. The sponsor is more or less the person who is kind of in the background that sees the value in you and is really your advocate on your behalf, that is like really going into places and saying, hey, I know this wasn't the plan, but this is the person that I think we should hire for the role, and who's really, being your cheerleader in those spaces where you can't be and see and you're not seen. And so that sponsor is the one who's really going to really give you the momentum. And I think you need that person when you're transitioning in your career. You want the mentor early on so you can build the skill set. They're the ones that's going to help you put in the work and help you understand how to build the muscle behind what you're doing. And then that sponsor is that person that's going to take that baton and help pass it for you to other folks so that they can see your worth and help you grow. And that's how I got into one of my biggest roles at the firm. Is someone stood up for me literally the day of my interview. He saw me, and I would always ask him for a job. Every time I saw him, I said, hey, can you hire me as a business banker? I used to work for ADP. I have all this experience. Every time I saw him, without fail, I said, when are you going to hire me? I need to be in your team. Like, can you get me into business banking? And he'd just kind of laugh and, walk away. And on the day of my interview, I had an 8 o'clock or 7:30 interview. It was like the earliest interview ever. And I'm sitting in the office, and then he comes walking by and he's like, what are you doing here? And I said, I'm interviewing for the role at 270 Park, which is our corporate headquarters. It was a huge role. And because it's, where Jamie Dimon sits, and huge, like you're on stage when you're there. And literally, he walked into the room with the managing director who would make the ultimate decision. And later on, he says, it's because of me you got that job, right? So I don't know, but yeah, that's how that works.
Nice. Lanta, you want to share? You're on mute.
I'm sorry. I thought you were just asking that question. What was the question again?
No, I was first asking the difference between sponsor and mentorship, but also how has that helped you at different points in your career, and when are they most important? Sponsor versus mentor.
I would agree with everything Christina said in terms of the mentors. I think they're probably important throughout the journey, but the sponsors I think are a lot more important when it comes time for promotions and all of those conversations when you're not in the room. And that's, I think, for a lot of women and minorities in general, is the sponsorship that's probably been lacking more than the mentorship has been. Because I think we have done, through organizations like Black MBA, we've done a really good job of mentoring each other, right? And it can be up and down mentoring, cross mentoring. We just haven't, until enough of us are in the seats, you're in less of a position to be a sponsor, right? Because the same thing about the Black tax, how many people can you sponsor if you're the only one in the room, right? Like how many people can you be highlighting, certainly you can, more than one perhaps, but it's not like there are 10 people that you can put forth when everyone else in the room also is putting forth people. So
Right.
I would agree with Christina.
And I would just quickly add, definitely in agreement. I think a lot of times with the mentor relationship, the mentee in many instances, or protege, because I like that terminology better, is the one kind of driving, the relationship, maybe more so, than the mentor. Your mentor, tends to be responsive, to your needs, and they're providing advisement and helping you to ultimately navigate your career. Whereas the sponsors typically are people, as situations, you have described, is in more of an influential, role, and have that ability to influence and provide the level of high visibility, for, individuals. They are constantly advocating, for you in your career. And they're the ones that bring your name up, because a lot of times, people are not familiar, with talent. It's not until you see somebody lead, whether it's a program or initiative, and the aha light goes off and you go, oh, who's that? Well, where have they been? And then all of a sudden, because that person can deliver, they become more visible. But I think the sponsor definitely does advocates, even behind closed doors, for, the individual. So that's my observation.
No, thank you all. I definitely thank you for giving the different definitions, because we hear the term a lot. I think it's important we state what that actually means, because different industry could be different things. But speaking to industry, and you all are in some similar but different industries, what do you think your industry needs to grow, or what changes do you see forecasting as you sit in your position that you see maybe coming in the pipeline, or some areas you're looking forward to seeing some changes to support not just Black women, but all individuals looking to get into your field?
I mean, one of the things I would say, and we made this commitment in 2021, is to continue to diversify our leadership. I think more and more companies are working towards being transparent. We made the commitment organizationally, that, we wanted to increase the percentage of people of color at the vice president level within the company. So that, we have an objective that we've started to be at 25% people of color at the vice president and above level within the company, as well as striving for gender parity organizationally at the similar, level. And that objective is geared toward achievement by year end 2023. So you got year end 2023 gender parity and people of color by year end 2025. So definitely having the commitment from the leadership at the top has truly, helped to make a difference. I think, we are continuing to invest in our talent. You were talking about sponsorship programs. One of our sponsorship programs is the Emerging Leader Program that we've had in place for about 5 years or so. And it's really a one-year program that individuals go through with rigorous development, some virtual, some in person. But each of those individuals were nominated and do actually have sponsors. And you see that those types of things, do actually work, because we've had some very strong outcomes as a result, of it.
Yeah.
So from the financial services industry standpoint, I'm happy to see a number of efforts across the entire industry. Most firms, most of the larger firms, I'll say, have some type of specific initiatives around diversity recruiting, whether that's women, Blacks, Hispanics, other networks as well. I think one of the challenges particularly for women and some of the ethnic groups is fighting the overall stereotypes related to the ability to manage money. We don't necessarily address it head on, but it's still, it's a societal issue because it's not that many years ago, if you think about it, that women were allowed to sign for property on their own. Like when you would hear a woman say, oh, my husband bought me a car, it's because she couldn't sign on her own, even if it was her money. She had to have a man, either her husband or her brother, sign on her behalf. So, some of these rules about women are not good with managing money or Blacks are not good with managing money, those are societal stereotypes that does sometimes make it hard for those individuals to be seen as being able to be a good advisor, to be in that role. So, some of it is the industry having to deal with, those stereotypes that are hardwired into what people believe. But I'm happy to see that we are starting to make some movement in supporting those networks and doing a better job of going to those communities and making investments. I had read from one of the major networks, the news outlets, that financial services firms, based on the outgrowth of the Black Lives Matter campaigns and some of the efforts of the last few years, had committed $200 billion with a B to be invested in Black and Brown communities. Some of it from their charitable funds, some of it as part of their corporate strategy for what they're going to do. So I think, from that standpoint, as an industry, there's a lot of opportunity for us to make an impact in Black and Brown communities, which means there will be more opportunities for advisors of color and Black female advisors as well to find success within the industry.
Thank you.
I agree with you 100%. And I know at JP Morgan, through our Advancing Black Pathways, we were definitely in an area where we're looking to bring in diverse talent and find more managing, have more, hire and retain more managing directors in Black and, Brown communities, because I think about 3 or 4 years ago, they saw that there was a lack in terms of just employees like myself not having an MD to look up to, or to, like you said, have someone in the room that can sponsor on your behalf. And so that's been, it's been a really aggressive goal that of the firm to really, dispel the myth that there's not enough Black talent out there, as you've heard, from some places, and really capture. And so we've been doing a lot from recruiting at HBCUs to just, having our, HR teams out there really combing through, and looking and trying to find those that are interested in being in the financial services and working, for the firm. And, because I think we do, I think Jamie Dimon does truly wholeheartedly believe in, the diverse pool of talent that is out there within these communities, and, in some of our investments, and, our $30 billion racial equity commitment around just workforce diversity and skills, jobs and skills is like one of our major pillars. So I think it's something we're working on aggressively. And I think there's a lot of opportunity as well.
Thank you.
One
Well,
of the things that I'm happy to see as well is that before, when you talked about sustainable investing, socially responsible investing, typically, when I first started in the industry, there weren't that many options, and you really did have to sacrifice some investment return in order to invest in socially responsible, things that care about the environment, the types of investments that, investing in companies that care about diversity or women or people of color or poor communities, those type of investments. That there weren't as many options. It's been so fulfilling to me to see we've come full circle, and now they have research that shows you actually may get better results from firms that focus on those type of issues. So Muriel had talked about it earlier. Firms that have more women on their boards, in their executive leadership team, they are generally, the research is showing, they are more profitable. And, some years ago in Europe, some of those countries basically said, we see the data, those companies are more profitable. So we're going to require you to have more diversity in your executive levels or on your board level, because that's a strategic advantage for your company, and you're headquartered here. That means it's a strategic advantage for us as a country. So California had some of those rules that they were putting in place regarding, the leadership and what it needed to look like, because they recognize it could be a strategic advantage. So it's not a feel good, do the right thing anymore. It's if you're not doing this, you actually may be doing your shareholders a disservice, because you may not be as profitable as you could otherwise be. So I am so happy to see that the data is finally there, so that it's a business decision to invest in Black and Brown communities, not just a feel good, do good thing.
and I think it's important too, that data is important, that we are able to quote data and share data, because sometimes that's what people want, they need. They don't, it's like you said, the feel good isn't going to do anything, because the business is about money. There's a bottom line, and we should be able to articulate that in ways that translate into things happening. So thank you all. We're almost wrapping up, but I want to give a chance for the audience. If you have any questions, I have two more that are more feel good, kind of light questions, but just thank you all for being here. And for any questions, drop in the chat. I'm gonna go ahead and go to my last two questions. But again, if you have any questions from the audience, feel free to put it in the chat and I will share them. All right, so my last two questions as we wrap up. If you could travel, past or present, where would you go? Who would you see and why? So if you could time travel, think like Back to the Future, Michael J. Fox, if you're of that age bracket, you remember when he went Back to the Future and they had a couple of series, but what that's the question. Past or present, where would you go? Who would you see and why?
Okay, I'll give one, and I say this, as you know, family is so important to me, and it has been throughout my whole life. I experienced one of the most difficult things when I lost both of my parents in the same year. And so I think if I could be a time traveler, I would like to go see them. And I'm not like, dear Lord, please, I'm not saying take me away right now. I still have too much to do, but I would just love for them to see, how their grandchildren, have excelled and all that has gone on within the family. So I'd like to do a quick trip and just come back. It's important to come back. So that's what I would say.
Definitely come back. Definitely.
That is hilarious, because I basically said the same thing. I would want to interview my parents and ask them what their dreams are for their children and their children's children, for descendants, because I do remember that my father had he would have those type of conversations, about how important family was and your descendants and that type of thing. And to actually hear them say what their dreams are. And I believe that we have far exceeded what they could have ever dreamed, for their children and their children's children and so on. But I would like to have that conversation with them.
I'm hitting all kind of buttons here. I think I would want to go back to kind of like maybe there's two stops I would want to make. First stop, I would want to go back to like 1804, like back to like when Haiti claimed their independence. And I'd love to just kind of see what that looked like and how they were able to do it and accomplish that goal. Because I find it to be their, first African country to like get their own independence. And honestly, it's been a huge suffering point for the country ever since.
That's right.
I think, and it's been the thing that's kind of held them down, whether people know or not. And I just love to see that because it's something that, my family really, we take pride on. And it's just, I don't know how they managed it, right? With the lack of resources and how are they able to do that? So, and anytime I've ever gone there, I always get this sense of like, I don't know, I always come back feeling more powerful and just strength within myself. And so I would love to do that. And then probably next stop would be like civil rights movement and like meet like a Martin Luther King and just some of the leaders during those times and pick their brain and understand, their thoughts about things. And because I think we're missing that. Like we need some strong leaders, I think, today that can really help us shape some of the conversations. And I'm really happy that we're having more conversations around like generational wealth and legacy and how to build that. And I think they would be proud to see that. And so just to learn more from them and hear what their thoughts are in terms of like, what do they think about what they see today? And, what would their thoughts be and how would they change? How would they implement some things and what's going on in today's economic environment and just our neighborhoods and everything that's going on. So that's probably what I would do.
Awesome. Thank you all for sharing. That's great. I know. So I think, I don't know if I shared, but I'm a school counselor and we do SEL activities with our students and also the staff, just to kind of build some morale and learn about each other. And that was one of the questions. And I was like, oh, that's a good question, just to think about what would you do if you could time travel. And just to share, for me, we're doing there's a documentary about my family coming out. And then the whole thing was like, how can we find out who we are, but past our matriarch and patriarch? So we know like Lee and Liza Hurt had 14 children and went out and did all this stuff, but we don't know anybody past them. And so we went on this journey and we couldn't get past them, like due to slavery, records, a variety of things. So I'm from Georgia, and it was, we found out a lot of things, but that thing we wanted to find out, we couldn't find out. So I was thinking about that question, and I would love to talk to them and their children, the ones who've passed on that we didn't get access to get some information. There were no pictures, like just little things that we are, of course, society is so different now. I mean, with phones are everywhere. We're recording now. So it's all this digital information to help our descendants talk about us, right? And there's not so much about them. So I really am in this space now about preserving and holding on to things to make sure that there's a story to tell when I'm not here to speak, that helps them figure out, well, who was I? Who's my family? So again, that whole family piece, right? Relationships so important. Then my last question before I let you go away is if you were giving a keynote speech at a conference, it's like fast forward 5 years, 3 years, and they said, what music do you want playing as you walk onto stage? What's your theme music? And what would your theme music be? If you seen I'm Gonna Get You Sucker, that was like this big thing, right? Your theme music. And it's like, I'm a slight movie person. So yeah. So what would your theme music as you walk onto the stage?
Whitney Houston, I'm Every Woman.
Nice. Okay. Okay.
Estelle, I Am a Conqueror.
I would probably do Run the Town with Jay-Z,
Of
Rihanna,
course,
and
Queens, New
Kanye
York.
West.
And I have two. I have Just
I-
Fine by Mary J. Blige. And a quick story. I did a if you're familiar with Jasmine Guy and the play for Colored Girls, she directed it for me years ago. And we ended because people see, if you had never read the poem, not the Tyler Perry movie, but the poem for Colored Girls who consider suicide when a rainbow isn't enough, it can be kind of sad, you know, especially the lady in red and what happens at the end. And she was like, I want it to be uplifting. This is about Black women going through their life, and life takes you through various cycles, but life in itself is a good place, like being alive and thriving. And so we ended with Just Fine by Mary J. Blige. It was always a special place in my heart because of that. And then the other side of me, because, you know, is Jill Scott's Haters, because I think it's like one of those things where, yeah, that's the space I'm in right now. Yeah. All right. So, so as we wrap up, I don't see any questions. Oh, I see one question. Oh, one question. Let's see. What's this? One question. Oh, Just Fine. Oh, yes. One of the, thank you. So, all right. So, well, thank you, ladies. I'm so grateful for your time. Thank you, attendees. We still have 2 more panels to go, so don't attendees leave. But panelists, if you have to go, that's fine. But thank you again for being here. We appreciate you. This is something that we have been doing now. I think it's our 4th or 5th year. I'm sure Lamar's still here, and it's really important. You know, not just because I'm a Black woman, but because we know it's important to pour into Black women in general and giving them voice and power. And each of you are doing that. And so we just really appreciate you for being here, and know that you are long-term friends and family of ours. So our relationship, so we'll continue to stay connected and stay in touch. And you'll get a little special gift from us after the holidays, because we want to say that we just thank you for your time, and we know it's valuable. And you could be doing anything else on a Saturday morning. You decided to spend a little time with us. So we thank you, thank you, thank you. 4th year, thank you, Lamar. And we're going to take a short break. So if you're just hang on with us. But we're going to take a short break and come back at 10:45. But thank you, ladies, for coming, and have a great, great Saturday.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Bye-bye.
All right. Oh, attendees, don't leave. We still have another program, so you can stay. So we're back in like yeah, in 10. Okay, sorry. It's 11:33. We'll be back. Thank you. Not 10. $10, not 10:45. Back in 10 minutes. So take a potty break, a bio break, and we'll be back. I'm going to pause the recording though. So welcome back, everyone, to our Women's Symposium, Power and Passion, Women Doing the Work. I am fortunate to know this young woman, this amazing individual, since I came to DC a little over 12 years ago. And I met her, and she was very unassuming, very quiet, but she was always focused on really creating a platform for people of color. And she's from the time I met her, that was one of the things she talked about all the time. And I thought, okay, great, you know, you need to let me know. And I've just seen her grow from Empower to now Quayle TV. And just, I want to say publicly, I've been in a few different spaces, and they've mentioned Quayle TV as a platform to watch, the one to support, you know, amongst the all Blacks, the BET Plus. the Hulu, like those conversations are happening and her name is being mentioned. And I think it's really important to highlight that work has not been easy, and that journey has been one that she's been on for a long time, and to respect the fact that everything doesn't happen overnight. It's that slow money is your grow money. And so she's definitely shown that if you stay the course, things will happen and flourish. And she just had, and she'll share this, her investment campaign with Republic, and she raised a little over $1 million, I believe. How much was
Wish, more like 250.
Okay.
We're trying to raise $1 million. Didn't quite get there.
Yeah. So without further ado, this is Miss Deshauna Spencer. I'm going to try to read your bio because, of course, in this moment I lost it. 1 second. My whole momentum. See how I do? I got too many tabs open, y'all. Too many tabs. That's my problem right now. I got way too many tabs open. Oh Lord. Help me. Oh, I got it. Woo-hoo. Found it. So Deshauna Alyssa Spencer is the founder of CEO Quele TV, a Black-owned streaming platform. She's a former radio host and producer of Empower Hour, a show that examines social justice issues affecting people of color on Washington, D.C.'s 89.3 FM WPFW. Before becoming an entrepreneur, Spencer served as Director of Communications with Ed Market, formerly NEESA, where she ran the communication department and managed all media properties for the organization. Spencer graduated from Jackson State University, go HBCU, where she studied communications and journalism. She has written for the Clarion Ledger, the Oakland Tribune, and Crisis Magazine. She is a Halcyon, I think that's how you say it, Incubator Fellow, a VOCA Fellow, and a Google Next Gen Policy Leader. Spencer was first place winner at the 2017 Harvard Business School African Business Conference pitch competition, a former AmeriCorps Vista and CHIPS Quinn Scholar. She is featured in the book How We Fight White Supremacy as one of the more than 60 plus Black leading organizers, artists, journalists, entrepreneurs combating white supremacy through their work. In 2019, the Digital Diversity Network named Spencer the Innovation and Inclusion Social Entrepreneur of the Year. She's an advisory member of the Full Circle Future and the Multicultural Media Correspondents Association. Welcome, Ms. Deshauna Spencer.
Thanks for having me. I
No,
appreciate
thank you
that.
for being here. We were just talking about bragging, and being able to share your successes, big and small. And so you have quite a few. But want to give you a moment to tell the audience if you could just share hometown, like where you're from, where you went to school. I said already that part. Years in doing this work, like how you're doing Quele TV, and then also bucket list places to go and who you admire and why.
Okay. So born and raised Memphis, Tennessee. They call it the Mid-South. It's the South, but they call it the Mid-South for some apparent reason. Working class parents. My dad was a truck driver. My mother initially was a teacher's assistant, and then in her 40s, she ended up going back to college and graduating and becoming a school teacher. And then she ended up starting like a daycare center in home, so she became an entrepreneur. I was you mentioned that, kind of like, I've always been pretty quiet, unassuming person, but also I've always had a big vision and I've always been very passionate. And so ever since I was a kid, I was always trying to figure out like what was my role in life growing up in Memphis. And my parents, I grew up in a very religious household too, where women had like a particular place, and there were times, especially when I was really young, I wasn't sure if there was a place for me being a woman and being Black, being from the South. I mean, it's kind of crazy. It was like this, like 1950s, right? It was, like the 90s. And I still felt that way just because of, my surroundings, not seeing a lot of professionals, not seeing a lot of women who were, uply mobile in my church or around me. But there was something inside of me that's like, maybe there's more there, and I always tell people like your life experiences are the ones that sort of guide you in certain directions. And I remember not even knowing, you mentioned college, like I never, like people assume I've been able to do like, oh, she must have been like the top of her class or like, super smart. And then I'm not super smart, but I knew my strengths, and my strengths were mostly writing and reading and mostly creative things. I was really bad at math. I just was actually really horrible at math. I think I had like a disorder or something. Like that's how bad I was, honestly. But the only thing I really enjoyed doing was writing. And when I was really young, I wanted to be a storyteller. I was bused from like my inner city neighborhood to like this predominantly white school. I was top reader in my class every year, usually the only little Black girl in the class, but I knew that books and reading and storytelling was a way of escape and a way of sort of seeing a world that you can see in your environment. And I wanted to be a part of that in some way. And so my initial dream was to be like a novelist and storyteller. And even when I was in 5th and 6th grade, I was so good at writing and reading, like those classes that I could like miss it. They're like, oh, Deshauna, she's already got her 8th for the day. So I would go to like the kindergarten, 1st grade classes, and I would be the reader. I was the story time person for those, smaller classes. I'd be all like, I was so animated. I love, love storytelling. And so it wasn't until I would say maybe middle school was where I thought about journalism as an opportunity. I love Meet the Press. I used to watch it going to church every morning. Most kids don't watch Meet the Press before going to church, but I used to watch it every Sunday morning, getting ready for church. And I really also enjoyed the news. My dad would read the newspaper and I would read it right after him. Like it was a ritual for us. And so when I was in high school, there wasn't like a newspaper in my high school, but there was a yearbook staff in my senior year. I was in the yearbook staff and I became the associate editor for the yearbook staff. And my teacher who studied journalism in college was like, you should really consider journalism as a career. And that's pretty much how it got started. My initial vision was to be a broadcast journalist, even though I was really good at writing. Like I think I was really good at anything but writing. And so, but I was broadcast because my parents wanted me to be broadcast, and I ended up changing over to print journalism. I want to say 2 weeks into my freshman year, I had really bad teeth, just keeping it real. Like my parents couldn't afford for me to get braces. And so being in my neighborhood, like the kids in my school never made fun of my teeth. I didn't even realize how bad my teeth were until I went to college, and the kids who had more money made fun of me. And I never forget, so when I was in college, they had like, huh?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, I know. We had a teleprompter, so we had a teleprompter test. Like, we're gonna show you how to do a teleprompter. So each of us were in front of teleprompter, and then they had like a screen, like so students could see us like reading from a teleprompter, and I can kind of see the screen a little bit, but the students were sitting in front of me. And when I was reading from a teleprompter, I could see students like making fun and laughing in my mouth as I was talking. And it was horrifying for me. And I saw a glimpse of myself and I looked away from the teleprompter a bit. And then I got off because I was looking at the kids or students. They weren't kids, were, adults technically. But I freaked out. And after that class, after I finished my teleprompter read, I went to the back of the class, and after class, I went directly to my advisor and switched from the print. And I never went back to the class again. I was so horrified and returned. But it was actually a blessing in disguise because writing is my strength. And so when I was in college and working for the school newspaper, which was the Blue and White Flash for Jackson State, and I was a columnist, I would write stories. I write, I guess, my opinion pieces about things were happening on campus, and everyone knew who I was because I always didn't write about things that people agreed with. And even faculty members like, I didn't agree with that article you said about, whatever, science, whatever. It was funny that people actually walk up to me and said they didn't like stuff. But it was actually in college where I had a bug for entrepreneurship. My initial idea was to start a teen girls magazine because I love reading. I had so many magazines back in the day. I don't even think they exist anymore. Like Teen Vogue. I had YM. I don't know if YM even exists. I had all those magazines. I paid for my own little money, and so I wanted to create something for Black girls. And so when I was in college, my senior year, and working for the Clarion Ledger as an obit writer, and that's actually how I got my teeth fixed because I had enough money to pay for braces. So I paid for braces myself. and I wasn't until I was like 24. And then when I graduated from college, they offered me a full-time job. I ended up going to the Oakland Tribune, and that was where I knew that I wanted to change focus from teen girl magazine to social impact, because working for the Oakland Tribune, I was pretty much a car reporter, and I was interviewing moms whose kids were shot. Like, that was pretty much my
Wow.
job. I hated it. It was very depressing, and I was trying to figure out, how can I use writing as a gift? How can I use storytelling to impact my community? And that's when I sort of started going different places. I worked for a small weekly newspaper in Fort Campbell, and then I did AmeriCorps, which is like the Peace Corps before America, in Buffalo, New York. And there was where Empower, my first business idea, came about, because I ended up meeting a lot of community organizers. I worked for this nonprofit that basically was in charge of different community organizers in different parts of the city. And I would meet these people, and like, they were doing such amazing work. And I wanted to, like, how can we talk about the work that they're doing versus, like, you know, the work that, you know, someone who's shy and whatever. And so I moved to DC area and worked for NSSEA, now Ed Market. And I took that job because I wanted that to be my last job ever. And I wanted to learn how to manage people and manage products and manage story. And I was in charge of everything at 24, which was a very daunting task. I had an assistant who was just a year younger than I was, which still goes so well for her. She didn't like me that much. And it was a really hard place to work too. I was the first Black manager at that job, and people, I was treated as such. But I learned so much working there, and I did start my online magazine. I did that for a couple of years. I hosted a radio show in DC, and it's called The Mentioned, and had a award ceremony. I did all this stuff. And then one day I was flipping through cable, and I didn't see what I wanted to see. I was seeing most reality television. I love history. And even on February, you don't even see that much Black history, like on the History Channel, you know. And I started learning about these independent Black films, and I was like, wow, I really want to learn more about these independent Black films during these festivals. How can I see them? And I couldn't unless I like physically travel to these festivals. And I'm like, well, that's not going to work. How I want to see them now. And I just so happened to have done a film. I did a documentary, it screened at the festival, and I don't know, I just felt like there was an opportunity there. And as a former journalist, I saw the correlation between implicit bias and media representation. And I was like, well, I had this Empower thing, like, should I pivot, you know, to this ideal that I have in my head? And that's why I went on this journey to consider starting the streaming service, which, and I was flipping through the cable, and I was like, I don't see what I'm looking for. I went to the other streaming services. I didn't see what I was looking for either. I was like, I'll start a streaming service, you know, crazy enough. And this was a long time ago. I mean, this was 2012. You know, it took a while for me to even launch Quilly TV. The initial idea came to me in 2012, and I was flipping through cable. And I remember applying for a grant in 2012. I didn't get it. I was a finalist. And because I was a finalist, and it was interesting because I learned about this grant. I was like, should I do the grant for Empower or should I grant for Quilly? I wasn't sure like which one to do. You know, I was like, you know what, I'm going to try this new idea. Every time I apply for something Empower, like I didn't even get, like not even semifinals, like nothing. Like I know. But for Quilly, I was a finalist the first time out the bat. I was like, wait a minute, I'm on to something. But I didn't win the money. It was $50,000. And you can ask the judges like why you didn't get it because you were finalists. And a lot of them were like, well, we're not sure about the future of streaming. That's what they were saying in 2012. But they didn't know. They were journalists too. Journalists always get it wrong. I mean, they got the internet wrong. That's why people want to pay for content. I mean, let's keep it real. So I was like, maybe I'm wrong. You know, will this be a thing? Because it was just Netflix and Hulu at the time. But you know, timing, luck is about timing. And I went through a Job moment, you know, 2013. Well, I was actually after that. In 2012, my brother and his wife, their first child died. And then my aunt died a month after that. And then my dad was diagnosed 2 months after that with lung cancer, non-smoker, stage 3B. I ended up moving back to Memphis for 5 weeks to be with my dad. And my mom, while he was going through radiation chemo, he had radiation every single day. So every morning I would wake up, he had radiation 8:30 a.m. I would drive to radiation every morning. And then he had, on Mondays, he had chemo, and literally on Mondays, we would leave radiation and go right to chemo. We'll be there from 9, pretty much like 5 p.m. That was Mondays. And then Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, I was driving him to radiation. And during that time, it was, I wouldn't even have time to even think about I forgot about a Quilly. What's a Quilly? Then in 2013, my dad ended up having surgery with the rest of his cancer, but the radiation and the surgery like really messed him up. He was in hospital from like June until November. I ended up almost hemorrhaging. I had these really bad fibroids, and I hemorrhaged on Easter Sunday. And I mean, it was bad. My dog became paralyzed. Like, I am not joking. Even my dog became paralyzed. I'm like, wait, there's something wrong here. What is happening? And between that time, by the time like 2014, into 2014, I was like done, but also my dad got better. I had my surgery. My dog started walking again, thank God. And it was just. And then in 2015, I learned about another pitch competition. It wasn't a pitch, it was like another competition for journalists. And I applied for that one. I wasn't going to do it, but my husband's like, you should do it. You never know what's going to happen. And the application was due in like a day. So I literally spent 24 hours to do a video pitch and everything. And I sent that in, and I was a finalist again. And this time I actually won the money. It was $20,000. But right before I won that money, I remember right before the competition, like a couple of days for the competition, I'm always about being very intentional and want to make sure I'm going down the right path. A lot of times we want it to happen no matter what, because our ego gets in, like, I don't like losing. No one likes losing, right? Right. And so our ego sort of takes over, like, well, I want this money because it looks good. I can post on social media and like, I won this money, or I'm moving in the right direction. Or versus like, is this really what I'm supposed to be doing? And so I remember praying in the shower, meditating, and I was crying because like it was close to learning whether or not I would win this money, and I really wanted this money super bad, but I also knew that it may not be meant for me to start this company. So I remember praying to God and crying like really, really hard, like, look, I really, 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 really want to win this. But if I'm not meant to go down this path, if I'm not meant to start this company, if I'm not meant to do this, don't let me win the money. I don't want to win the money. And that was it was a very hard thing to pray, but I also knew that if it wasn't for me, I didn't want to waste my time. I didn't want to waste God's time with something I'm supposed to be doing, like I could be, if I'm like, I want to win this money no matter what. And then that could block my blessings from something else I should be doing, right? So I was very intentional about that. And I won the money. So it's been hard. It's been such a long journey, but I remember that prayer because I'm like, okay, Deshauna, you pray to God that if this is it, then you go down this path no matter what. And so I've been on this journey for a while, but still here. That's how I started this, my life's journey up until this point, abbreviated, in a way.
No, it's so amazingly connected to what we talked about all day, from our opening speaker to our mental health chat to now, that it's a full circle opportunity for us to just ask you some of these questions. We talk about, you mentioned, what of the world have you been able to see that you thought you wouldn't see? Because you said it somewhere that you like, I'm not.
What I wanted to see, like when I wanted to start Clear TV.
Right. So what of the world have you been able to see that you thought you wouldn't see? Like not just in general.
Where I have been able to see that I thought I haven't seen. I don't know. That's a really, I'll be honest, like I see y'all Cabo trips and all that on social. I don't get a chance to travel that much, honestly. I've been so busy with the company. But so I will say that, right before the pandemic, I went to Lisbon, and it was a really great experience. I'm really happy that I got a chance to do that. It was in February 2020. So it was literally right. It was like February 24th, 2020. Everyone's outside, living their best lives, on the beach. It was amazing. It was so beautiful there. I drank a lot of wine. I was only there for a layover. I wasn't there to really on vacation. I was there before I went to like a festival in Germany. And I think I got COVID there too, actually. But I got sick when I got back. I'm like, wait a minute, I think I have COVID. I went there, I think we called coronavirus at the time. But so I just never thought I would even see the person who I am today, to be honest, because as a kid, again, I had low self-esteem, I had like a bit of a stutter, like hosting a radio show, like if my childhood self would have saw me on a live mic for an hour a day, I'm like, wait a minute, what is happening? Like I was damn near mute and like as a kid, like I never spoke to people. I just was very shy. I didn't believe much in myself, but I was also very stubborn too. Like I knew there was something inside of me, but I just wasn't always sure if it would actually happen or not. And so everything that I've experienced in life has been like, wow, oh my God, like I can't believe that I'm experiencing this. Like, I was in Memphis recently for a funeral for a family member, and my aunt was like, oh, I hate flying, da da da. And I was like, I actually been on like 13 flights this year. I never would have imagined as a kid that I'll be flying on, like being on panels and keynotes. Like I literally, since April of this year, I've traveled extensively, speaking about creativity, speaking about representation, speaking about, Black media and, being an entrepreneur and having diversity in this space. And to me, that is like, wow, like I can't believe it. It's not perfect, but it's still an honor. So I hope I answered your question. Okay.
No, yeah, definitely. And also, if you have a question for the audience members or any of the panelists, please make sure you drop them in the chat or come off mute of the mic. I would love for you to engage in this conversation, because one thing I will say with this Quayle TV journey, you've been through a lot from when you first started to now, and the growth you've experienced. How has being a Black woman helped and hurt you in this process?
So even early on, like I said, I won that initial $20,000. I didn't know anything about this space. I didn't know anything about I didn't know what the VC was. I didn't know any of that. I didn't know about pitching. I know watch a lot of YouTube videos, of Stanford like pitch competitions and seeing how, I didn't know what a pitch deck was. I just knew my business plans. My first pitch deck was lots of words and not a lot of, I just knew what I was doing, and one of the things that I really didn't know was the disparity that Black women have when it comes to getting investment dollars. So once I started learning about the whole VC world and investment world in Silicon Valley, I was like, oh, okay, so you build an MVP. I didn't know what MVP was. And then you put it out into the world and people like it and they start paying for it and you get traction, you can get money because you've proven traction. And so I thought that would happen for me. I didn't know whether or not people would come, but like literally day one, we had customers. Like we had a 30-day trial, and within the 30-day trial, we were making money. Like I made more money in Quayle TV in like the first probably 6 months I made probably all of Empower, to be honest. And so I was like, what in the world? So I went to investors, and I didn't know that the disparity of Black women getting money. And so typically when I do speaking engagements, I always ask the audience if anyone wants to, take a stab at it, what percentage you think Black women get from investment every single year? If you think about from zero to 100, you can, come off of mute or you can type it in chat, but I'm really curious to if anyone can take a guess on what percentage do you think Black women get from investments every single year from 0 to 100%, if anyone can guess that. You don't want to guess? No one wants to guess?
Okay, she put 15, Mel put 15%.
Oh, okay. Oh, I don't see that. Oh, I'm in the web.
No. She put it to you. She did a private one, but she's.
Okay. 15. Oh, it's okay. Yeah. So.
Anybody else want to see anybody in the? Okay, it's just Sarah and Dominique. Dominique, you want to guess? You can come off mute real quick.
I would say less than 5%.
Okay.
So wait, what's less than 5%? Was we thought like?
Oh, so like, I'll just go with 5%.
Okay, all right. All right. So
I would say, I just want to say this. I actually was going to say 5%. That was my first thought, but then the optimistic being I am, I was like, it has got to be more than 5%. So let me shoot higher. So drum roll, please. That's why I said 15. I was like,
15.
15 is
Oh,
still
okay, you said
low.
15.
Right. I was like, 15 is still low, but I was like, I cannot imagine if it's 5 or less. But go ahead,
Right.
knock us out.
Well, so I'll do all women first. This is like all races. For all women, it's 2.2%.
2.2.
I'm so
For
glad I
all
was on
women.
mute. My response. What in the world?
Yeah.
Okay.
2.2% for all women. And for Black women, it's about 0.35, something like that.
That's a percent.
Yeah. So when I started Quaker TV, it was 0.2%, and now it's gotten to 0.35%. So it's gotten up a little bit, but not a
She
lot.
said 0.03 and it's gone up a little
Yeah.
bit.
So less than half a percent, right? Less of half of a
Yes.
percent. And then all Black people is about 1%. Like Black men, Black women combined is like 1%. Latinx is about 1.3%. So it's not like Black men get 10% and Black women get 0.35. Like Black men don't really get that much either. They get the 0.8 or whatever of us. Yeah, sad. It's very, very sad. I didn't know that. I didn't know it was that bad. And I remember thinking I was doing something wrong. Like I'm not good enough. I'm not trying hard enough. I'm doing, like why won't people invest in me or invest in the company? And that's when I realized it was just hard. When you see articles about Black women raising over $1 million, that is rare. I think only about 130 Black women have ever raised over $1 million ever. So I didn't know that, and that's a challenge. It's a challenge for all women. 2.2, like women make up half the population. Even white women ain't getting money. White women ain't getting money either. It's only white men. Literally, only white men are getting money. Like literally, that's it. And that was one challenge. Another challenge, just as a Black woman, was sometimes the brothers, I mean, you'll be surprised what people would say to me, like Black men would say to me sometimes about what I was doing. Maybe you should just, focus on just maybe content. Do you really want to be leading the whole, one time when I was at this event, it was at the time we were on Capitol Hill, and myself, and I actually had myself, who was really encouraging, actually Bob Johnson from BET, former CEO, founder CEO of BET. We were both speaking on Capitol Hill together about the set-top box issue. And he at the time he just started Urban Movie Channel, that's called All Black. And I thought, well, we're competitors. He's going to be some type of way, but he was actually extremely encouraging. He's like, I remember you, like you remind me of myself when I was your age, and just keep at it. Like he was super encouraging. So it's not all Black men, I want to say that, but at that same event later that day, another brother who started streaming service, his streaming service doesn't exist anymore. It's like, does your husband know you out here doing all this work? Does my husband know I'm out here? Like, no, I sneak out the back of the door every day. What is this color, purple? I can't touch my mailbox. I mean, like, what is happening here? And this brother was younger. He had to be like late 30s, early 40s for him to be talking on the side of his neck. I'm from the South, talking on the side of his neck. Like that was like really eye-opening for me. They've also just had, Black men contact me, who don't have anything. And like, I'm gonna start streaming service. I'm about to raise $1 million. So I think we should just merge, because once I start my company, yes, I can go on and on and on about how demeaning it is and how I've been treated as, and that's why I work so hard for this, because, there aren't really a lot of Black women who are, owning, like even OWN is owned by Discovery. It's not owned by Oprah. I mean, she has a stake in the company, but she doesn't own it, all right. But, you think about Kathy Hughes. I mean, what she's been able to do, with TV One, Urban One, it's just Radio One. It's amazing. There aren't that many Black women, and she'd live in her studio, right, for years. I mean, right, it's the station, to make it to this point, because people weren't, supporting her. And so I admire her, and when I get my, low days, I'm like, this is too hard, like no one wants to support. I think back on, people like her and know that, she went through a lot too, but it's been a really hard journey, and I think it's important that, that we're represented, that Black women, we control our narrative as well. And it's important, I think, for us to be in a space and more of us should be, leaders and starting things. And so, yeah, that's been abbreviated version of some of the challenges I faced just as a Black woman.
No, thank you. Because what we've been talking about today is along that same line, the Black tax, the things we have to go through, the stigma, how do we how do we get our mental health in a space where it progress? Because mental health is real, going through depression or anxiety, or I can only imagine having these kind of things coming at you on a regular basis, how you do doubt yourself, right? And how you do have to figure out, like, how do I, and so what do you do to keep your mental health intact? How do you remain positive? How do you kind of keep your joy in the midst of some of the things that tell you that you should not be doing this?
It's tough, I've dealt with a lot of depression. It's not something I like to mention out publicly, but there have been times where I'm like, I don't know if I want to be, because folks, it's like, okay, running this company, you have everybody coming at you, or not coming for you, right? Investors are like, I'm not sure, you get rejection so much, like the amount of rejection I get, it's not even like humanly necessary. It's like, it's just a lot. You apply to things, you get rejected from investors, your customers and reject you, and because they want their $5.99 back, because I mean, the stuff like I'm gonna go on Twitter, and because y'all ripping me out, I want my $5.99 back because I want to cancel. All right, fine. Like, you get rejected from customers, you get rejected from your own peers, like, in this industry where I'm an outsider. I'm a total outsider in this industry, and there are people who do not want quality TV to exist, and it's painful, and you wonder, why am I even going through all of this, and like, why? But when what brings me joy is the customers who do believe in the vision, getting that, even though we weren't able to raise, the $1 million, I'm virtually a nobody, in this space. And for us to even raise $250,000 from our customers was, to me, brought me joy. I get emails from customers all the time, like, I love Clay TV. I've gotten letters from customers, like written letters from customers. I don't know how they got my mailing address, but I get handwritten messages, from them. Filmmakers, we work with over 450 filmmakers, and they are always like, Deshauna, we want to continue to work with you. We love, if it weren't for you, I wouldn't get this exposure. I wouldn't have gotten this other opportunity. And, I see our platform as the starting point for a lot of creatives to move on to bigger platforms, right? We want to be that starting point for them. You look about, like, when Fox first started back in the day with The Simpsons and Tracy Ullman, all those, I think it's Tracy something, that show, whatever those shows were back in the day. They, or In Living Color, like, they took In Living Color, I think wasn't on Fox. In Living Color, I think so.
That might have been a reach for them. That's interesting, but back then it might have been desperate. So
well, this was, I mean, Fox was very different back in the day, like in the 90s, but I think it was, I don't know, but they created stars, like they weren't getting like the
it
big
was
stars.
Fox, you're right, in 1990. It premiered on Fox. Yeah.
They took a gamble on a lot of shows. I think they also had Mad TV eventually, like, and they created stars, on their network. And my goal is to be able to do that through Clay TV. And that's what gives me hope. And also too, like, I do a lot of prayer meditation. I'm in the mornings, I try to center myself and try to, wake up in the morning with gratitude, versus like all the stuff I need to do for the day, or stuff that's not going right, or something, the rejection email I get first thing in the morning, try to center myself and try to meditate and pray and be thankful. that I'm even in this position that even though it hasn't been perfect, I'm still here and fighting. And things I do just to, I love walking, I love hiking, I love being outdoors. You know, I always feel closer to God when I'm out in the middle of nowhere in wilderness. Like, I don't know why, but I do. And I just like to sit out there. And that's what really brings me joy. Spending time with my family, even though it's for not so great circumstances this week, at least, you know, it's just good to see people and see family, hug people. And that brings me joy. Spending time with my husband, you know, brings me joy. And so it's just the simple things in life, honestly, because honestly, we only live once, and those are things that really matter the most.
Oh, definitely. And Melva just put in the challenge. She says, I imagine you have experienced racism, sexism, ageism, proud of your fortitude. And definitely that, you know, it's this work cannot be done alone. And so it's really important that we continue to share. So the business of entertainment, right? I did want to talk a little bit about, like, you know, the business side of this. Like, when you talk about putting together a streaming platform, like, it's a business. So how does your business operate? What have you learned from doing Empower? Because that was also a business, and even doing the radio show. But talk about some business aspects of those your three companies, and kind of where you are now in growing your business, and even doing the Republic, you know, investment campaign. That was a big deal.
Yeah, so I definitely learned some lessons with Empower. People want to pay to read. I learned my biggest lesson is like, oh, okay. And people wanted, I knew that building community is super important. You know, I knew that early on with building Empower. And I was attempting to build more community through Empower and decided to pivot to Quilly. But building a media company, building an online magazine is very different from building a streaming service. When I started Empower Magazine, it was just with a couple, maybe like $5,000 or something. That's what I started the company with. And it was a glorified WordPress site that we, you know, pumped with steroids to make it look like, you know, a legitimate media company. And finding freelance writers, you know, was not super easy, but it was, you know, because I'm a journalist by trade, starting Empower is pretty much like getting on a bicycle and going for a ride. You know, I was in charge of an entire media department, you know. So I knew how to do that very easily, and it came very easy for me to do. Starting Quilly was a very different feat altogether. When I said, okay, I'm gonna start a streaming service, and I was like, wait a minute, what did I just say? You know, and to myself, I didn't really know the first thing to do. Then the difference when I started Empower, like, I read online articles about how to start an online magazine. There was a book called How to Start an Online Magazine for Dummies. There is no How to Start a Streaming Service for Dummies. That book does not exist. And Reed Hastings is not giving TED Talks and master classes on how to compete with him. You know, he does not want a competition. And so I didn't know the first thing about starting this company. The first thing I did was I went to one of my board members for my online magazine, who was a full stack developer. And I said, I have this idea for this company, and I know I can't start with the WordPress site. Like, I know I can't upload some videos to WordPress and have people watch it. And so from there, he connected me with another full stack developer who has some background in video and building platforms. And I basically gave this guy most of my $20,000 to build it. When we launched our beta, this guy basically, I gave him all the money. I gave him it was in 3 installments, and I gave him 2 installments, and he was supposed to finish, and then I would give him the last installment. He had a baby, and so my board member from my online magazine was like, Deshaun, he just had a baby. It's taking him longer to finish up. You know, he really needs the last installment. It's like, okay, great. I'll give it to him, and I get it. I never heard from him do it again after that. He skipped town. He moved to Colorado, and I never heard from him again. And the site was about 90% done. And so I just made the decision to launch Clicksby with the incomplete site, because it was MVP. It could take people's money, it can play videos, but if someone had to reset their password, I had to literally go in to the back end, and it would create like a temporary password for someone, and I would email it to them. And then, or they would tell me, actually they had to tell me their password. I had to put it into the system and say your password's been, that is so like, it was like that for 2 years because we couldn't raise money. For the first 2 years, so when they reset the password, I literally had to go in and reset the password for them and I had to know their password. Like it was totally horrible. And I ended up going to 4 CTOs who didn't know what they were doing. I didn't have a lot of money. I paid them what I could. And one of the lessons I learned was I thought I needed a CTO because investors, like you need a CTO as your co-founder.
Okay, what does CTO mean?
It means a chief technology officer. And they're like, you need a CTO, like you need a co-founder. And I spent a lot of times looking for things that investors told me that they said I needed in order to be successful. And it was a disaster every single time. The second CTO that I brought on board, and real nice guy, but he just knew what he was doing. And he another guy tried to fix a platform and the platform crashed. And they forgot to back it up before it going live. And I told them, I said, make sure you back it up. This isn't a lawyer's website that you change, some text every 6 months. Like it's a streaming service, we add new content, customers come on every single day. Anyway, he didn't back up for 2 weeks. And so we lost 2 weeks worth of customers, paying customers. And on the Stripe end, they were still customers. On our end, they weren't customers because the platform we're speaking to, it was a total nightmare. I had to let him go. Other CTO that I brought on, not a nice guy, but he ghosted on me. He was working long hours. I think it was just too much for him. I get it. The other and actually had 5 CTOs. The third CTO again ghosted on me. I found him. He was on a radio show, and he was like, "Oh my God, you've been through so much with this company. I really want to help you." We used to meet every single week in DuPont Circle, and we would talk about building a company, and he would show me what the progress and everything. He was also getting married at the time, and we were supposed to launch in 2 weeks. I let filmmakers know. We let press know. People were so excited. And 2 weeks later, like 2 weeks before we were supposed to go live, I was supposed to meet him at this normal spot. He didn't show up, and I never heard from him ever again. We had such a great. We were working together for like 5 months, and I thought he was murdered or something. Like no joke, I thought he was dead. And I found that he was alive. I wanted to kill him. I'm like, you better be glad I'm not the old Memphis Shoshana. I call my goons from Memphis, come up to DC.
That's right. You gotta keep them.
So I'm like, you don't know where I'm from, So, because even my dad said, you need to go up to his house. Well, even my dad, you go up to his house and find him. Like, nah, Dad, because it won't be good. Actually, learned later on, he goes to 2 other people, because I told my story at another event, like in Colorado. Like, oh my God, he ghosted on me too. Like, really? He's just a ghoster. My last CTO, or what I'm saying, I'm not gonna. Maybe it's just a male thing, and maybe it's I'll try a woman. She meant well, but she was very antisocial. Like she was such a developer to the point where she liked talking to people, she liked managing people. It was a really weird relationship with her. And she just said she couldn't do it. It's like, it's fine. It's like, I don't think you're gonna make it. I don't think you're gonna be able to build this company because I don't want you to tell me.
She told you that?
Yeah, she told me that. I don't think I'm gonna do this. It's unless you find a developer yourself, unless you become a developer yourself. And I went to one development class, like, I'm like, nah, this is not it's not for me. I am more the leader, writer, creative. I'm not, behind the scenes development. It's just not my thing. And that was a real big mistake on my part. And then working with a third-party vendor who sort of can help build platforms very easily. And what took over 2 years for all these developers to try to build, I was able to launch on the beta with six weeks with this other company, with a company who knew more what they were doing. It was such a big challenge. And even from that, just trying to raise money has always been a challenge. And it's just been extremely, extremely hard. But, I guess lessons have been that, one of the lessons I've learned is like, I took way too long with those CTOs. I should have pivoted a lot sooner and found an alternative. I should have not listened to investors to tell me, kind of like what I needed in order to get money for them, because they weren't gonna give me money anyway, right? They don't give Black women money anyway. So why was I so pressed, to focus on like what they needed? The only reason why I debated, besides that other company, was I was really trying to figure out like, how can we make this work with very few resources if we can't raise money? And I remember thinking like, what if the cavalry doesn't come? Like, what if no one comes to save me? I think a lot of times, I meet people who want to build companies and they're waiting for someone to help them.
Mhm.
I contact this person, they didn't get back to me, and I need help. The reality is like, no one's coming. I had to learn it early on. Like, people don't start coming to like, you've done a lot of work yourself, and then everybody like want to be a part of the bandwagon. But in those early days, it's just so hard finding those people who believe in your vision. And sometimes the road's gonna be super lonely. You're gonna be doing a lot of work yourself. I was Quincy's only employee for years, doing everything. And most people don't know that because you look at the website and you see the press, we've gotten. I was doing that, I tell people like that song by Drake, all me for real. Like, it was all me for real. Customer service, Keisha, I'm still Keisha customer service, like finding content, everything, like all the components to, Netflix has millions of employees. It was an army of one. But I believe in vision so much. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to see if I can make this work. And eventually I can find the staff to help me build this company. But it's been a really hard journey. And another thing I've learned too is to just, sometimes you try to force things to happen in a pace that you think it should happen. And I'm just starting to let go a bit, and just go along with the journey, still be very, proactive in my goals, but also understand that things just don't happen in our timing. And it can be very, very frustrating. But it's still something that I'm learning as I move forward. I'm nowhere where I was, years ago. Every year, we reach another pinnacle, and I'm always very thankful for that.
Thank you for sharing that. I want to, in our last 10 minutes or 13 minutes, I want to focus on some positives, like what has Quayle TV done, or what is Quayle TV doing? How can people support you? Where can they find you? Did you ever get that CTO? Like, how is business?
So I never got the CTO. I actually don't want a CTO. I think I maybe want like a product manager at this point. I right now work with a tech team that I hired, and they have experience building this, because one CTO is not gonna, you need like a lot of people, it's just a lot of building to make this work. And so right now we've been focusing on, we did our platform. We have a new website, new apps. We added a EDU portal. So we're looking to get to the B2B space, where we've had universities ever since like the 2020, with George Floyd and Taylor Mount Aubrey and others. We've had interest from, our goal is initially to go HBCUs, and they weren't coming for us. And then the PWI started coming for us, like reaching out to us saying, hey, we think your content, is really great. And so we have potential opportunities with these, big universities like Ohio State and, DePaul and others who are interested in our content. And so we have a portal where universities can actually, come to our platform and watch our content. So we're working on that. We have a loyalty program now on our website. The longer people subscribe and watch content, they get points they can use towards a subscription, or even towards a Black-owned business. We have partnerships with Black-owned businesses. And we're also starting to dabble into original programming, like treading very lightly. Original programming can be very expensive, as you see, with the market downturn. A lot of, even like the Disneys and a lot of, the HBOs and Netflixes, they're starting to pivot back a bit on original programming. There was this, I knew the bubble was going to burst eventually on originals, and you can kind of see that starting to see that now. So we're treading lightly. We're taking the Netflix approach, from the 2010 Netflix approach. Looking at 2 or 3 projects to start with, and and see what happens with it, with those, and then kind of grow from there. So we're definitely dabbling to, starting to dabble into originals. Nothing's come out yet. We're still building some things and producing, in the middle of production of, 2 projects. But those are some of the things we're working on. Right now, we have over 600 titles. So we have a lot of content. We're adding content every single week, on the platform. And we have, it's a global perspective. And I think it's important to show us, from a global perspective. And so those are some things we're working on. I'm probably I'm forgetting some things right now, but
Okay. And also we have a thing. Well, we worked out a deal that everybody at the conference or the symposium will get a 14-day trial, so you can check out Twilight TV and hopefully subscribe for the holidays and get it for your family and friends. And what else? What's when you say, can you share about the original programming? Like, what are you guys looking at? What type of programming does that look like for Twilight TV? Since you are a streaming platform, you have a plethora of like 600 titles, a variety of things on there.
So we were going by, what our customers, like. So the 2 programs are actually, they were presented to us like for their first seasons. They were so they're only on Clay TV right now, but their first season are only on Clay TV. So we decided to give them funding to do their second season, and so we can actually officially say they're, Clay TV original, and so we'll be on nowhere. They're not anywhere else right now anyway, but we can actually Clay original, we co-produce.
Nice.
We actually give them money to produce it. And then there's a documentary, but these 2, the first 2 projects are both animation projects. So animation and documentaries tend to be like our top genres on the platform, including sci-fi. So it's documentaries, nonfiction type content, animation, and sci-fi is sort of like our top. And then children's programming is another one. Dramas, or rom-coms, they do well. I mean, we have a rom-com that's doing pretty well actually, but though that's what seems to do, I guess, because we're so different from other platforms, like we know our lane, other platforms like slam dunk rom-coms, like that, they easy to drink it. There's or those dramas, with the wine and the high fashion outfits, and they're rich and all that, like other platforms do a really great job with that. And so our goal is not to be on a platform that reinvents what other places are doing really well. We want to be in a different lane. So our lane is animation, our lane is sci-fi, our lane is documentary, and those are some of the programming that we're looking for all things. So even if a drama, we're open to it, but just based off of the numbers and based off of what our customers are looking for, and what they're asking for, we're sort of going down that lane for originals right now.
Okay. And how can people support you? How can they find you? Like what are ways can they
Definitely. So our website is kweli.tv. You can watch us on the web. We're on Roku, Apple TV, Amazon Fire, Android TV, iOS, Google Play for Android. We are on, we're about to be on Samsung TV as well. And so that's how you can watch us. Supporting us is, I always tell people, spreading the gospel of Clay TV to your family and friends, subscribing to Clay TV. We're only $5.99 a month. And then we also have an ad-supported one now that's only $2.99 a month with ads. So there are different ways in which you can subscribe to Clay TV and watch our content. And, a lot of times we're so small, but I think there's room for a number of platforms, in a space that focus on Black content. Ours is just from a global perspective. And so any way you want to support us, is amazing. We're also on social media, KWELI TV, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, TikTok. So we're on all those different platforms as well.
All right, awesome. Well, thank you so much, Deshauna, for spending some time with us on your Saturday. We are grateful to have you, excited. Hopefully everyone will check out Kweli TV, check out Deshauna's work. And if you know somebody, I'm sure you do, spread the gospel. But that will wrap up our 4th annual Women's Symposium. Thank you all for being with us. We are so excited that you joined us on this awesome Saturday. We are going to, 3 things, because this is going to be recorded. recorded 3 things. One, our upcoming scholarship gala, awards gala, is December the 3rd at the Marriott Marquis. Please grab a ticket, come out and support. We give away about over $20,000 in scholarships to young people every year, between high school students to graduate to undergraduate students. We are committed to supporting those who want to learn and get their education. Also, we have a toy drive coming up. We are also about the community. We're working with the Kappas out of, I think, Prince George's County, Montgomery, Maryland. December the 10th is our annual toy drive with them. It's a great event. You come out, bring a toy, and have a good time. We love a good party. And then on January 19th, 2023 is when I will officially, well, I take it officially January 1st, if you ask Lamar, Dr. White. However, our inauguration, our office induction ceremony will be on January 19th. It's a Thursday. Please check out our website. Make sure you join our waiting list so you can come out and celebrate with us. This is going to be an amazing celebration, transferring of leadership, but also recognizing that we're going to do less better coming up in 2023, and also a season of caring. My campaign is about care, C-A-R-E. So come out, support us. Thank you again for being here. Have a blessed Saturday, and make sure you reach out and touch.